Ross Hardy, InkJetCarts technical support. We're at the Workforce 7110 and installing an Ecotank pre-filled system. We've done a nozzle check. We've installed the Epson carts. We've unpackaged our Ecotank, including all of our pieces. What we have here is a door switch key. What we have here are bumpers to go under the covers. We have tubing guides, 3 each. We have air filters to stick in the tanks and a battery to power the special reset all to full, whenever to full chip. The very first thing we want to do is get control of the printer and go to maintenance, ink cartridge replacement, and replace the ink cartridges. You can't open this cover when it's underneath that little lip. They do that on purpose. And we need to position the head to this knockout area here so that we can open this cover. You may choose to, one of the two, remove the cover or leave it intact. Our system will fit through the cover. You're going to remove all of the Epson cartridges. You're going to grab your cartridge bank, slide it through. You're going to position the cartridges just like they would go in if you were in single cartridges. There is a notch between these 4, and then you're going to wiggle it and get it to go down nice and smooth. Once you hear this crunching noise, you're going to push a little harder and lock them in. Okay, I received a printer error, and the reason why I received the printer error is because I moved the head. So now I need to go ahead and do 2 things. Let's go ahead and put our battery in. And the positive side goes up, and there is a marking on the actual holder. And it does slide out, or you can just insert it, making sure that you put it in all the way and making sure that you see the positive side. Then pull your tubing and lock your cover. I do recommend that you use about 3 reams of paper underneath the stand, one about the tank height, just a little bit lower than the top of the ink cartridges. Now we're going to remove this back plate before we go any further, and we're going to look in each one of our compartments before we pull these airport hole plugs. It's very important that these holes are out. Wow, I must have had something set up over there. These are your refill plugs, and these are your airport plugs. Do not install your filters yet. The main thing we want to do is, before we power this printer on and off, we want to make sure that we are going to be providing inks to the printer. Now your door switch is over here on this side of the printer, and this thing will snap right in. Trying to get you a close-up of that. I never know if I can see that or not, but you can see how I placed it in, and that's all that there is a little fin underneath the top cover right there that slaps into that hole. You'll need to remove it sometimes when it tells you to open the cover, so don't lose it inside the printer. Now let's just power up the printer. Need to find a good spot for these. Now it's going to do a power on self-test, so have your tubing in your hand so that it doesn't bind up the printer. It's likely to move around rapidly and do a little dance, so you make sure you hold the tubing out of the way during this process. You could even drape it over the lid, making sure that you've got enough to make it all the way to the left-hand side. And that'll do it. Now, it says ink cartridge is not recognized. Click OK to proceed. Open the printer cover. You'll need to remove the switch key. I'm fairly certain that I have the cartridges installed properly and that they're fully seated, but just to be sure, I'm going to smash them down again, hit the button on the chip. There is a button right there next to the battery cord, and then I'm just going to try that. It says ink cartridges are installed. Close the cover. Going to reinstall my switch key just like I showed you before, and it's going to check the ink cartridges. Now it says preparing the ink system. I don't know if you can see that because of the glare or not. We'll see when we... But it obviously accepted the cartridges, otherwise it wouldn't prepare the ink system. This whole process takes a few minutes. Now I'm going to start looking around for a place for these. I need enough for my tubing to not get clipped. And we'll cover routing in a second, as soon as it's done with its thing. I recommend this forward edge over here for one bumper. And for the other bumper, I might even put two of them side by side right there. If I put it back here, it's going to stick up considerably. And that may or may not be okay. And if I do that, I would put both of them at the back corner here. And then the cover would stay open about that much. Makes it easier to grab. And I'm thinking that that's going to be the perfect height to install the bumpers. I like it. Until you like it, you might want it closed a little bit more if you're in a real dusty location and such. But as it turns out, I like it. I won't ever have any tubing issues with it open that far. Next thing I'm going to do is pretend. It might actually move over to the other side, so I'm going to loosely hold it while it's doing its number here. I'm thinking that the T-bar, which is the main guide piece, I need enough to make it back to home position, which it's in right now, as well as enough to make it to full extension. Now it says that it's set up, and it says ink levels are all full. So I'm going to do another cartridge change procedure. It's asking me to remove the switch key again. And I'm going to go ahead and manually hold the head. So I just threw the printer into an error. Now I need just enough to make it to this left stop, which is where I grab the head and put it in. And I need just enough to make it home. And that's pretty sweet right there. Just enough to make it all the way to the left stop. And just enough to make it home. So I'm going to peel my tape. Try not to touch it. And pretty much a little bit more towards the back side than the front side. Just a little bit more. I've got about a finger's width there, a little bit over a finger's width there. And then I'm going to go ahead and play with it and make sure that I like it. And I like that. So now it's going to make me repower the machine again. I'm also going to put one clamp right here about where the serial number is. I'm going to go ahead and clamp it first before I pull the tape. Make sure that I like it, and I'm putting an angle on it so it can never walk through this clamp. Even though the clamp is pretty tight, I don't ever want it to walk. So I even put that at an angle. And then I'll repower the machine. I'll put my switch key in while it's turning off for the door switch. And then last but not least, I'll put a clamp over here on the side of the printer so that it bends down. Now this one I'll go ahead and mount it, and then I'll go ahead and put it through it before I clip it. And then last but not least is installing the air filters. Now I kind of blazed through this real quick, but during shipping you may have inks all the way up in here, so I'd caution you before you pull the plugs. And I also caution you not to get ink in the air filters. It's the same thing as leaving the plugs in. You never want that to happen. So whatever you got to do, tilt this thing, get it installed and get printing with it. Leave these air filters off, even indefinitely. They're just dust filters to keep dust out of the air chamber. And you never want to get ink in them, because if ink dries in the air filters, the air filters are useless. You've just choked all your flow. This back plate is a storage plate. If you ever remove it, remove the air filters and plug everything up, you're going to leave it off at all times. You're going to turn the sight windows towards you so you can see the ink levels at any one time. You can turn it in any direction. Remember, the large hole is the fill plug. We'll cover filling these later. The small is the air chamber. There may be inks all the way up in here, and if so, you're going to want to tilt the entire unit when you pull the plugs and try to get it to equalize. Even if you have to install it with something underneath here to keep it at an angle and start using it to get the inks to draw down, it matters not. Do not make a mess. If the pressure of the airplane pushed a lot of inks over here, the important part is to get these plugs off and get the ink stable and get the tank system stable, installed, and using it, and not make a mess. Outside of that, there's our installation. Let's go ahead and power it back up now. We've got it completely routed. We've got it recognizing the cartridges. We have our door switch installed. And we've tested that it'll make it all over both sides right now during the power up process. I think Epson wants $100 for these 4 cartridges now. It's more than that if you get the XL size. And especially that wide black that holds an ounce of ink. I believe they want nearly $40 for that cartridge all by itself. Sure, you can print on it for a while, but for the price of that one set of cartridges I just showed you, this system holds about 10 of those cartridges, and you're just not going to need to do anything very often. Maintenance, print head nozzle check, up arrow to print it. It's going to come out. The system is installed, the printer is printing, and it is controllable. And the nozzle check is perfect. So we could dump a Purge 4 chart to it now at this time, but this is a quick and easy video on how simple it is to install. You got to get out of the print head cleaning mode, so you got to up arrow until you see finish and hit OK done, and then back arrow to the main menu. If you need to quickly set up papers, there's a paper setup button and such and so forth. Pressing it tight twice gets you out. We're up and running, and I want to thank you for your time. And this is how simple it is to install our new preloaded prefilled Ecotanks. We load them with dice subs, we load them with pigments to match Epson, we load them with heat transfer pigments, we'll load them with any ink you want to use, as long as it's ours. We don't sell them empty. Ross Hardy, InkJetCarts Technical Support, and thank you for your time.